Are old school fragrances still worth it? Yes or no? Guys, awesome for tuning in. Today I'm going to look at the fragrance classic, the Ralph Lauren Polo Sport fragrance, which coincidentally was the first fragrance I ever bought on a flight from Greece back to Germany. And I'm going to explore with you this fragrance today. Was it worth buying? Current formulation. In part 2, we're going to look a little bit closer at the bottle and the packaging. I'm do a quick unboxing, talk a bit about the fragrance. And then in part 3, we together look through the notes. What are the characteristic notes of this man's fragrance? And finally, after wearing it for a while, in part 4, I'm also going to give you my personal conclusion. How close does it come to the original? Did I still enjoy wearing this, or do I regret buying it? All this coming up in this video. Awesome you're here. Let's get started. Wonderful. Then let's have a closer look at this cult classic Ralph Lauren Polo Sport. And then quickly afterwards jump to the notes. I used to own a vintage bottle, but that was quite some time ago. And I would guess there is some truth to it, probably because of the age of the formulation. I mean, this came out a long time ago. In my opinion, it's very likely that they went to some sorts of reformulations. A second thing where you can detect it is the sprayer nozzle up here. The current one is a blue one, and that used to be different as well. And quickly reminding myself of the smell. Yeah, it's fresh, it's spicy and woody. So very unique combination back in its day. And I remember this, having a lot of fun wearing this fragrance. And sometimes I just want to reach for this for nostalgic qualities. Yeah, why don't we just go ahead and jump to part 3 and look at the notes. Terrific. Now we jump to part 3 and we're going to take a closer look with my testing strips of this Ralph Lauren Polo Sport fragrance. Like, very interestingly, the first fragrance I ever bought on a flight back from Greece to Germany in the in-flight magazine. And does it still smell like the vintage? I used to own the vintage a couple years ago. I think the fragrance has changed. A lot of people also think so. Of course, it's a little bit tough for the companies if let's say they change IFRA restrictions or something like this. Then they may have to switch out something, so they have to make a trade-off. Regardless, as you can see in the side card, it's an eau de toilette concentration. For the eau de toilette concentration, it performs okay. Projection is good at the beginning. It's 1994. The perfumer is Harry Fremont, and yeah, it's a fragrance that is aromatic. Definitely fresh, spicy, and woody in the dry down. Now you can argue, is it very woody? Is it just slightly woody? I think there are other fragrances that are woodier. But yeah, I think it's a fresh aromatic fragrance that dries down. You know, you have these fresh notes in the opening, these fresh spicy notes, and then as it dries down, the bottom notes come up a little bit, and that's these woody notes. I think it's a nice fragrance. Let's quickly look at the notes as well. I picked out some notes. You see the fragrance uses aldehydes, lavender, bergamot, mint and lemon. The aldehydes is my understanding. I'm not a perfumer, but it's my understanding that you don't necessarily use the aldehydes for the smell of them per se, but you can add aldehydes to the fragrance to move the fragrances in a different direction. That's what I was told. That's what I read somewhere in the perfumer's book. But yeah, I mean, it's interesting. Obviously, it smells slightly different on a test strip. You see ginger, geranium, and rosewood. The ginger, maybe you can imagine something spicy, musk, amber, and woody notes. I don't get that much musk, but then again, there are different kinds of musks. The musks can be used to round out the fragrance. Well, it's a little bit tough to say from the testing strip, but yeah, why don't we jump to the conclusion? My conclusion with that fragrance is, it is an absolute cult classic. And who might not like that fragrance? Maybe if you're a younger person, maybe you want to get something that's a little bit more modern. I think the fragrance smells a little bit older, or I wouldn't say dated, because I think it's an interesting scent profile, but I'd say people who like that, maybe who owned the fragrance in the past, they want to be reminded of this. So if I smell that fragrance, it definitely reminds me of the original, but I also think it does not smell exactly as the original. But then again, it's also a little bit tough because it's many years ago since I owned the vintage. And I sometimes enjoy grabbing this still nonetheless, but I don't wear it that often. If you are looking for a budget fragrance that's still easy to wear, I mean, this for me is like a really easy reach. It's easy reach, and but it depends on what you have in your collection. You know, if you're like a fragrance lover, maybe you want this just for collecting purposes. But I have to say, and honestly, there are a lot of different other options out there. So yeah, guys, that's all I have to say. Very simple, straightforward. I showed you a little bit basics about the fragrance. And if you want to see other Ralph Lauren fragrances, you can let me know in the comments below. And also on my channel page, I have a lot of more modern fragrances that you can check out. As you can see here, I always upload new videos all the time, and you can check this out as well. Awesome for tuning in to this vintage review. And yeah, I'll see you in the next video. Have fun. Take care.
Nice. And if you want to learn more about, let's say, or experience a new woody fragrance that uses a new technology, upscaling or upcycling with white biotechnology, then why don't have a look at this Tommy Hilfiger Impact? And I talk a little bit about this white biotechnology fragrance compound that they used in there. Very interesting. I think it was a Givaudan. And yeah, I see you in the next video, and as a subscriber.